Welcome to the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Podcast, your main resource for 2QB fantasy insights, smart bets, and winning props. Hosted by Fab, Nac, and Raj.
The stage is set, ladies and gentlemen. Super Bowl 59 will see a rematch of Super Bowl 57 with the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. What a weekend it was, boys. First game, left a little bit to be desired with a little bit of a blowout win, but pretty cool. 7 rushing touchdowns. I believe that's an NFL record for a postseason game, which is absolutely crazy. We had the Eagles beating the Commanders 55-23 to move on to the Super Bowl. And then we had our pièce de résistance on the AFC side with the Chiefs narrowly defeating the Buffalo Bills 32-29. That was definitely more of a nail biter, should we say, and definitely the better game of the day.
I called it, guys. I don't know if you remember when we did one of our mailbags with some guy from TikTok was asking who we thought was in the Super Bowl. I did call Eagles versus.
I remember that you did. Kudos to Raj on calling
I see
that
it,
Super Bowl.
Fab. I could tell. I could see it. The wheel spinning, the eye roll on its way.
Roger keeps receipts, and that's fine. That's okay. Good call, Roger.
We're
Good
in
call.
the business of receipt keeping.
We are very much in the business of receipt
and
keeping
and betting. So
Yeah. No, well done, Raj. I think I had, if I remember correctly, I was going with Buffalo and the Lions, so
Lions,
that
yeah.
did not age well. And I think Fab, I don't remember who you had. Did you have the Chiefs in there?
I think I had the Chiefs and I had the Lions
Yeah, I think that's
because I was
right.
I was never gonna pick the Eagles. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but I mean, the Eagles, looking back at it now, that was probably the logical choice to go. That
What a
team is
team.
pretty,
We're
that team
stacked.
is, it's like
Yeah.
top to bottom.
I
It's,
was just
Yep.
gonna say top to bottom.
yeah, it's actually incredible. And then you have Mahomes, 7 years as a starter, seven straight years in the AFC Championship. He's only lost in the AFC Championship in the playoffs, which is absolutely crazy.
Joe Burrow, right?
Joe Burrow and Tom Brady.
And Tom Brady, yeah.
Which is absolutely. Wait, no.
Well, he lost to Tom Brady in the Super
Tom
Bowl.
Brady in the
But he
Super
lost
Bowl.
to Joe Burrow
Yeah.
in the AFC Championship.
He's only
But
one. He's only lost.
Who did he lose his first year in?
To New England in
AFC?
2008.
So it was Brady again. So it's true. He's lost to
2018,
2 people, but he lost to Brady twice.
when
Yes.
when the Pats beat the Rams.
Yes. He lost to
Yes,
Brady
that's
twice.
right.
He lost to Brady in the AFC Championship and in the Super Bowl when he won with Tampa. That's it. Still pretty crazy. All he does is lead his team to the promised land, which is nuts. But I digress. Let's get started with some key takeaways from Sunday. Raj, what did you take away from Sunday's games?
Yeah, a few things, Nac. I would say Nac and Fab. I'd say coaching matters. I felt like coaching mattered more in that matchup than the NFC one. For instance, the use of Xavier Worthy. I don't know if you guys noticed the wrinkles and how they use them. A little bit like Rashee Rice. I thought it was the perfect timing, again, showing how the Chiefs kind of they hold back right during the regular season and they bring out new wrinkles in the playoffs. What can you say about Steve Spagnuolo? Like, who else has the balls to call double corner blitz on 4th and 5? Like, just an amazing call, and I felt like he set that up. And then the last 2 points from a coaching standpoint, Mahomes with the read option game. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, right? And I believe they were both on read option plays, which you never see Mahomes doing during the regular season. And then, of course, there's the ancillary pieces, Kareem Hunt. There was Watson as well, who had I think the key 2-point conversion. Juju Smith-Schuster was nice too. So for me, it was just
He had a good game.
Coaching perspective. I thought Reed out coached McDermott. I thought Joe Brady got out coached as well by not relying on James Cook at the end of the game as well when he was absolutely killing it. So
he didn't get a touch on that final drive.
He did not get a touch on the final drive, which to me, like, he was absolutely rolling, and it just doesn't make sense how the Chiefs have Spagnuolo, who could easily be probably a coach in many teams, and that's like the biggest cheat code that he's still with the team. It's nuts.
Yeah, and honestly, I was reading today because some people were like, did he even get any like offers or anything? And I think it was the
The
Jets
Saints.
had asked to speak with him, and the Saints, I believe, asked to speak with him. Yeah, so it wasn't as crazy as people would think. Maybe he's more suited to be a coordinator. We know guys, we definitely know coaches like that just take the leap and just never pan out. Josh McDaniels comes to mind.
He's barely an offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels.
Well, he was a good offensive coordinator, right? I mean, I guess having Brady all those years definitely helps the resume. But no, I definitely agree, Raj. The coaching was definitely something, and I think to your point, Andy Reid, come playoffs, you start seeing things that, like you said, you don't see during the year, and just surprises people in those instances. And Spagnolo at the end, uh, he apparently had they had that look twice during the game, but never sent that blitz. So they definitely were not expecting that, especially at that juncture in the game. So yeah, I definitely agree with the coaching aspect. What about you, Raj? Excuse me, Fab.
For me, it's like not too dissimilar, but I'm also going to go like a little bit with the line play. Chiefs dominated their line play, both offensive line and defensive line. O line provided excellent coverage for Mahomes. He was only pressured on 29% of his dropbacks. So Buffalo had a total of 9 pressures and 1 sack, and the D line play for the Chiefs was just ridiculous too. I mean, they kept Allen under constant pressure. 43% of his dropbacks was under pressure. His average time to throw, Josh Allen, was 3.64 seconds. A little bit misleading. You think, oh, it's a lot of time to throw. Chiefs D got to him often. The pocket was breaking down. He was flustered. He was running around. It's crazy to think that, like, like to Roger's point, right? Like they pull all these things out like in the 11th hour, but that's what good teams do. Like they don't need to use this in the regular season. They use it when they need to use it. And that's in the playoffs right now. Um, Bills definitely got out coached. I don't think it's even remotely close to say that they didn't. Allen having 3+ minutes and final drive, 3 timeouts in the fourth quarter, down by 3, and they couldn't get it done. It just shows you how good their coaching staff is on all facets, right? So it sucks, as I wanted the Bills to win, but here we are. Chiefs are gonna most likely three-peat.
What do you guys think of the 2-point conversions by McDermott? I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of chasing points that early. It always bites you, and it bit the Ravens in the divisional game. I'm
Yeah.
just not a big fan of it.
Yeah, I think it's just circumstantial at times. Sometimes I think the analytics favor it. I know they were down by, what was it, 15 at one point or something. So I, I do get your point, but it's just that it's one of those things where it's like playoffs is a whole different ball game too, maybe, and it's just like you want to try to secure everything as much as possible to not have to, like, again. I get your point of chasing points, but it's just I think there's an analytical part to it that plays a role in some of the game script
The game
moments
flow,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, the game flow is what I should say. But funny, I saw a quick tweet today. Career resume for Josh Allen in the playoffs: first all time in total yards per game, 309.8. First all times in TDs per game, 2.46. First all times in TD to turnover ratio, 5.3 to 1. And then you have, between the Stephon Diggs drop, the Chiefs' 13-second comeback, the Tyler Bass 44-yard missed field goal, and then the Dalton Kincaid drop, he really cannot catch a break. And his I believe his 7-6 playoff record is seriously widely misleading, I find, and definitely he's consistently delivers when it matters most, right? It's just that you kind of see like the team in the end kind of lets him down in
Yeah.
certain instances, so it sucks for him. I do feel bad for Josh Allen because I feel like he deserves it. He had a sick year, and it's really all for naught at this point.
He's the real Tom Brady, Peyton Manning to the Tom Brady. Like we
Yeah,
were saying, it's Lamar Jackson, but this is like, I think
yeah,
at one point Peyton Manning was 0-6 against Tom Brady in the playoffs, and in the next 5 games it ended up being 3-2.
No,
You
isn't
know,
he? I think his total record. His total record is 3-2 versus Brady in the playoffs.
Really?
No, he has more losses than wins, I
Yeah, I'm
think.
pretty sure he has
No,
more
no, no,
losses.
no. He has more wins than losses.
Okay.
Peyton Manning record versus Brady in playoffs is 3-2. They've only played each other 5 times.
You know what? For some reason, it felt like more. But in any case, it ended up catching up. He ended up catching up afterwards. But similar to Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, it was always coaching at the end. It was always Tony Dungy, maybe not making not having the right game plan. Maybe one or two. It always comes down to one or two plays during the playoffs with this caliber of quarterback.
I'm pretty sure he started 0-2.
Yeah, Nak is right.
Manning versus Brady, and then he won the next 3 to finish 3-2 in his career.
Nak is
Yeah,
correct.
yeah. I think I was factoring in the regular season as well. But
Yeah, it's possible.
yeah.
I was shocked as well. They only met 5 times in the playoffs. It felt like they felt like it could have been 6 more for sure.
The home quarterback is undefeated in all of those scenarios. Brady is 2-0 at New England, and Manning is 3-0 at Indianapolis/Denver.
Yes, he beat them once with Denver when he won the Super Bowl. But
regular season is much more lopsided towards Brady.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't think he has many lopsided against him. If we're if we're being honest, we're gonna save our Super Bowl predictions for next week's episode, as it's obviously they get a week break in between. So we thought we'd dive into some storylines, some fantasy storylines going into next year with some of the players we saw in the playoffs. So we'll get some feedback from there. What's next for the Rams, guys? Are Stafford and Kupp on the way out? And if yes, what does it mean for Kyren Williams and Puka Nacua's fantasy value? Raj, what do you think?
Yeah, like for me, from what I see from Stafford, he feels like he's LA or bust. Like he's not. If he somehow gets cut, he's retiring. I feel like he's like really well entrenched in LA. Plus, he carries a $49 million dead cap hit. So if he were to retire, there's not much option for them. Kirk Cousins would make sense. I think with the cap gymnastics of if he gets cut, how much Atlanta owes, then how much the Rams could pay him. That could be an interesting option. But we have to see. I think he comes back for one more year. I think they try to retool that team. But from a Kupp perspective, honestly, I tweeted it. I posted it in our group chat, in the Bush League group chat, guys. I don't want to say he's overrated, but we look at Kupp in a certain way when he's only had in his 8 seasons 2 1,000-yard seasons, and he's only been above 90 yards per game once. Like, he's an amazing player. He's done amazingly for himself, but injuries catch up to him. And for me, like at this point, Puka Nacua has taken over considerably as the number one option. And then lastly, from a Kyren Williams perspective, I would not be surprised if we start seeing Blake Corum a little bit more. I felt during the playoff game there was even a few people tweeting about it. There was a few runs where Kyren could have a more explosive back should have broken those runs for bigger gains, and he has somewhat of a limitation from an athleticism standpoint where he's great, for 4 or 5 yards, but he's not a game breaker. And as we're seeing in the playoffs, you need game breaking type backs. Barkley, Henry, Cook is definitely of that ilk as well. So I think it'll be interesting to see. At least they have that defense, that young defense that looks really good.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think if obviously if Stafford is back, the value kind of stays the same on Puka, right off the bat. Like you're drafting him top 5, maybe wide receiver, top 10 for sure. And Kyren Williams, I think I agree with you. They're probably going to get Corum more involved next year for sure. Fab, what do you think?
Like Puka's going to be like wide receiver 3 if Stafford's there. Like right now, he's mulling over retirement. Like Raj said, is a little bit more non-committal. Kupp, I think he has to take a pay cut or he's going to get traded. But again, same thing. Like he's not the receiver that he expected to be. So I'm not jumping at him if he gets traded from a fantasy perspective. Quite frankly, regardless of where he goes, I don't see that much value in him anymore. It's crazy to think following the fact that the guy was a Triple Crown winner a few years ago. Kyren is an enigma to me, because if he's the lead running back in a McVay offense, we know lead running backs, they get all the work. I know Corum is there, but I feel like the offseason is going to be very telling. And obviously when practice starts and all that stuff and training camp, it's going to be very telling to see where Kyren is going to be, because I don't think this is ever going to be a split backfield, quite frankly, or like a running back by committee. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like Kyren for the beginning of the season, and then all of a sudden Blake Corum comes in, and that's going to be his show going forward. They didn't draft him for nothing. He's obviously going to be the guy going forward at some point in the future, but that future might be a little bit sooner than not. And even like, I think this was the last year that you can get Kyren and like be confident it's going to give you RB1 numbers. I know there was a lot of talk about him catching punts in the offseason, and that didn't transpire to anything, quite frankly. And he balled out, right? Like he finished as top 10, I think like top 8 or something. I don't know if I don't think that's going to repeat. Like, I'd be cautious to draft Kyren Williams next year, unless you know without a shadow of a doubt that he's the guy, and like something happens to Blake Corum and he doesn't start the season.
Well, he was mostly getting 5th round value this year because of what you were saying.
Oh,
I think because of the
injury
proneness.
A lot of drafts.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if he gets drafted at that same round this year, because people are scared of those same reasons are going to come up again.
And the difference,
you just might not get the value you got this year.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
You're going to get proper 5th round value, most likely at that spot, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to, I think it was Nick that drafted him in our league, and he ended up winning the league. And
he did.
He did. And he got excellent value from drafting Kyren super, super late, because everyone else was a little bit hesitant.
Yeah.
Agreed. Awesome. Before we dive into our next question here, I was a little too trigger happy and very excited to move on to this segment that we definitely skipped across our little feed or takeaways from the Washington and Eagles game. So we'll just quickly touch upon that. Fab, what stood out for you?
We're going to do this quick because I don't want to talk about the Eagles. But they are. This just shows how objective we are as a podcast. The Eagles are a complete team from top to bottom. They are a complete team at all levels. They are a complete team on defense and all 3 levels on defense. Like, it says a lot when the highest rated players in that game versus Washington were the 2 rookie cornerbacks, Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean.
Nuts.
Like,
You got it right.
That's great.
Well, it took the whole season.
What were you calling him? Dejan?
Dejan. It's a Montreal podcast. It sucks, man. Like, the all pro linebacker, all pro defensive lineman. They're a complete
both
team.
linebacker, like Nakobe Dean before he got injured. He was amazing as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. And they're saying Bond might be defensive player of the year.
Honestly, I think it's the most wide open defensive player of the year, I think, in like a long time. Like, I don't think like Watt's not winning it. I don't think Garrett deserves to win it.
No. I got a prop bet on Danielle Hunter to win like $145.
Yeah, there's Hunter. Hunter who's there? Who the other 2?
I think Surtain should definitely be involved in there.
And then the linebacker.
Bond. Yeah.
I honestly, probably good chance that Bond maybe takes it home, man. Like, it's a very wide open one this year, that's for sure. And quickly, Rod, your takeaways from Eagles?
I owe Jalen Hurts an apology, and I just want to read through a quote that he had after the game, which I felt was very telling for how the state of quarterback play currently. So he was saying, I don't play the game for stats. I don't play the game for numbers, any statistical approval from anyone else. And I understand that everyone has a preconceived notion on how they want to look at it or how they expect it to look. I told you guys that winning success is defined by that particular individual, and it's all relative to the person. The Eagles play to their strength, and they know their strength is the running game. And there is I've come to the conclusion that there's no reason for Jalen Hurts to throw the ball over the yard 35, 40 times when they're a ball control offense. And when you're in a ball control offense, the most important thing is controlling the ball. And so not turning it over. And The last thing I'll say is that I hate to say this, but they really remind me of the '90s Cowboys triplets with Hurts, Barkley, and AJ Brown. And if you look at Aikman's stats, and if you hear Aikman talk about today's QB, he will tell you today's QB just thinks only about stats, whereas he was focused on winning the game and winning Super Bowls, which meant he took a back seat to having the highest numbers so that
Right.
Irvin and Barkley could eat.
Fab?
I'm just curious because that was a very well spoken quote from Jalen Hurts. Did he get that from AJ Brown in his book or something, or like was that all off?
What is it? Strive for what is the name of the book again?
I don't know. I couldn't find it anywhere. It's sold out. We'll move right along. We'll stay in the same game, however. Guys, rising star Jayden Daniels put on a show in the playoffs. Obviously had a tough afternoon this coming Sunday, but the future is bright. Based on what you saw this year, has Jayden Daniels earned a top 3 QB selection in next year's draft? Raj?
I think he's earned it for sure. Will I make it personally? I'm not entirely sure because of what I saw from CJ Stroud and his sophomore season, and top 3 is a lot. Like, are you going to really pick him over Allen and Jackson? And at that point, it's Burrow or Hurts, right? Like when we did our rankings, we had him at 5th. I still would leave him at 5th personally. I would rather see one more season before saying, okay, I'm going to pick him over a Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I mean, we still have de facto Allen or Lamar as QB1 and QB2. I think everyone still has that. That's why I put 3. That's where I'm saying do we have? Is
Yeah.
there an argument to be had that he could be the 3rd QB off the board come September? Fab, what do you think?
There's an argument for sure, but it would be like for QB3, and that would just be based off his rushing production, and maybe he takes a jump in his passing TDs. But I mean, I don't disagree with Raj. I think QB5 is a very safe spot for him, and he's definitely worthy of a top 5 consideration. I would even go as far as saying top 4. Like he finished as QB4 this year. I see him doing the same thing again next year. Would it be crazy? But then again, he was also only 6 points behind QB number 3, Joe Burrow, right? So, sorry, 7 points. So the guy almost finished as QB3 to begin with, and it's not a big gap between number 3 and number 4. It's definitely like if someone takes him at 3, I wouldn't say he's crazy.
No,
Or
definitely
she.
not.
You know what?
Excuse me. Like
I think I take him for sure. I think probably take him over Hurts. I don't think I would take him over Burrow.
I would take him over Hurts, and I agree. Over Burrow, it would be a lot closer of a choice. But
Wait, Fab.
It's right.
Wait. You don't have Mayfield top 3?
No, Mayfield's top 5. Mayfield's like QB6, man. Solid QB6.
Dude, those way too early rankings. I don't know about UNAC. I did not want to put Mayfield at 6, but I felt we're just doing a favor for Fab.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right. He has the most passing touchdowns in the last 2 seasons. Mind you, now with
And he
what's
lost
his name,
his
Cohen, he lost his offensive
Duval.
leader.
And
Duval.
That was so strange.
So cringy.
McAfee killed me today. Like they had that thing on loop. It was amazing. Duval. Yeah, that guy just I did not think he was like so impersonable like that. Like he's just not a people person, it seems like that locker room. I don't know how he's supposed to.
Apparently they loved the O-line, Evans, Baker, they all loved him. So,
but he's one.
Yeah, they're all white.
He was one and done.
That's a good one, man.
Evans is not white.
Evans, he goes both ways. So yeah.
That could be a segue to the next question here. Another team with high expectations that came crumbling down, actually at the hands of Jayden Daniels and the Commanders. The Detroit Lions lost both their OC and DC this offseason. So I ask you boys, how is it going to affect their skill positions for the upcoming fantasy draft. So we're talking people like Amon-Ra, Jared Goff, Gibbs. Does this have any effect on them and where you might be drafting them next year?
No. So John Morton, he was in Detroit.
Okay, Raj.
Yeah, that's great. He was in Detroit. He was in Detroit in 2022. The passing game coordinator for the Broncos. He's been wide receiver coach for a long time too. He was work with like Randy Moss and Michael Crabtree. He was actually the Jets offensive coordinator in 2017. And you're like, hey, the Jets. Well, that year, Josh McCown and Bilal Powell had career years. So,
Oh shit.
Wow, what names throw out
Yo,
there?
seriously.
right,
Josh
right.
McCown and Bilal Powell.
They
Wow,
actually had. They
wow.
actually run a very effective, a very efficient offense in that year, which is crazy to say coming from a Jets perspective. So, I mean, obviously, there's going to be some growing pains, but ultimately, I don't think it's going to affect. I don't think it's going to affect Amon-Ra or Gibbs. Would be surprised if Goff might take a slight hit, but I mean, you're still drafting them more or less in the same spot, right? Like low end QB1, high end QB2. Gibbs is still going to go top 3. Amon-Ra is still a top 10 guy. If you want to use this as a tiebreaker to take AJ Brown over Amon-Ra, that's your call. For me, it won't really change a difference for me. I don't see this being, as Roger would say, a force multiplier, and changing all my rankings in that sense.
Raj, what do you think?
Fab said everything perfectly on offense. I'm not going to touch anything there. I like what they did on defense by hiring Kelvin Shepard, who
Yep.
was already in the building, who's a linebacker coach.
Yep.
Pretty good player too. He won national championship at LSU. He's a former Giant.
Yep.
And he's been in the Lions organization since 2021. And they're getting obviously a lot of players back from injury. So I think I like what Dan Campbell did. He stayed basically within that Lions ecosystem, Lions nucleus of coaching staff. And the players are still there. So I don't have many concerns either on either side of the ball.
Yeah, I know that he took Aaron Glenn took Randall with him, who was the wide receiver coach and up and
Yeah.
coming coach in the league. And I know there was rumors that he was going to be trying to grab some defensive players and bring them over to the Jets as well. So interesting offseason. I feel like it's a to be continued to see what happens in free agency and, and and we'll see where they're at.
Just one real quick on that. Like, how do the Jets feel? Like they go from Robert Saleh, who was a very good defensive coach as the head coach, to now going through another defensive coach who was a head coach. Like, isn't it just like you just did a full 360 for nothing and all that hoopla in the background for all that? Like, not to take anything away from their new head coach, right, from Glenn, but it's not as if
Glenn,
Robert Saleh was a scrub of a head coach and he was a very good defensive coordinator.
I think the key thing is Aaron Glenn played there for 7 years, so he knows the New York market. And I think we would always be saying about Salah, he would just fumble the press conferences. Not like the press conference, like the initial one where he got hired, but just every week it was like, dude, you're giving too much detail. Like, take a step back. Like in New York, everything gets magnified.
Yeah.
As we know, Fab, from being Giants fans. So I think
We
Glenn
do.
will command the room better. Maybe not necessarily command the room, but I think he'll have a better sense of how to work the media and work those press conferences, because it has a big impact
That's
on
a good
the
point.
locker room.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree.
Good point.
Yeah, it is a good, definitely a good point. Um, Obviously, there was some disappointing playoff losses from these QBs, but where are you ranking them in terms of where you're drafting these guys next year? So I'm talking about Bo Nix, Justin Herbert, and Jordan Love. Raj.
Yeah, so I still have it as Herbert, Love, Knicks, with a caveat that I think Knicks can easily have another good season. He was the 8th QB in fantasy this year. He was obviously ahead of Herbert and Love.
Yep.
But I would be weird. I still be weird of getting Knicks in the 3rd to 5th round, which is probably where I would slot in Herbert and Love in a 2 QB. I don't know about you guys. I don't have, as a rookie or going into a sophomore season, I'd still be a bit weary picking Knicks that high. I would still rather get him as my second QB. I don't feel comfortable having as my number one,
QB1.
as my QB1. Yeah.
Right.
So it's still Herbert, Love, Knicks for me. But if I could get Knicks at really good value, I'd be more than happy to take him.
Interesting. Fab?
Yeah, I don't disagree. I have them ranked a little bit differently. I have Bo, Herbert, and Love. So basically, as the question was worded, um, again, with that being said, like, yes, I would be hesitant to have Bo Nix as my QB1 going into the season just because it's sophomore and we all know how that happens in the CJ Stroud recency bias and all that stuff, right? I don't know, but I just felt like you really saw him grow into the offense towards the second half of the season. Sean Payton, like that's his guy, you know what I mean? Like, and typically his QBs do perform pretty well, apart from Russell Wilson that 1 year. But even then, actually, no, sorry, I take that back because Russell Wilson did have a pretty good season under Sean Payton in that one season that he did play under him at
Yeah.
Denver. I mean, compared to the season before, but I like the trajectory for Herbert next year too. Again, same idea, same concept. Within the same coaching staff and all that stuff, and you see Lad McConkey is just a stud. Um, Jordan Love, to me, like it's a bit of a wild card. I feel like he's going to be a very good value pick next year. I wouldn't be surprised if his, like by all accounts, he had a bit of a down season just for all the injuries and everything. But the guy can still bring you like QB1, low end QB1 value on a week to week basis. So I wouldn't be surprised if he drops in drafts next year and someone picks him up and all of a sudden like they're starting him on an every week basis and he got them for like a QB2 type value.
Yeah, what scares me with Jordan Love is just what we saw this year is just there's no bona fide number one wide receiver there. There's no bona fide option that he gets, right? It's just a bunch of like it's a bunch of wide receiver 2 3s all around the yard, and that's what worries me. And I guess that's where I would put obviously Herbert first on this list, just because he does have Lad McConkey. I'm more than certain they're going to go out and draft or try to sign a receiver this year. There's some money that comes off the cap, so they're going to have a little bit of room to maneuver. So man, that Bo Nix, Jordan Love, I feel like it's a toss up to me right now. I think Bo Nix has more weapons right now than Jordan Love
Yeah.
does, and I think I'm gonna go. Mine will be Justin Herbert, Bo Nix, and then Jordan Love third in this list.
Surprisingly, Marvin Mims really came on at the end of the year.
Yeah,
And,
man. And then like those two rookies, there was Vele
Finley,
and
yeah,
Franklin, who look
yeah,
Franklin,
yeah,
excuse me, who looked good
triple.
down the stretch also. So I think they have a little bit more weapons. And I know there was some rumors of like Najee Harris being a landing spot at running back over there, to get rid of some of the fat that they have.
So add more fat.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I mean, look, slice it any way you want. He's the only running back with 1,000 yards in 3 straight seasons. So, um, yeah, we'll in with that comes into our next question. Perfect segue here. With Skylar Thompson being the only rostered QB in Pittsburgh for the 2025 season, Najee Harris all but set to leave in free agency, and a potential Pickens trade looming. Do the Steelers have any skill position value, and what do they need to go get if not? Uh,
So to answer the first question, no, they don't have any skill position value in my opinion. I saw this question. I didn't
I
write
think
down
in
any notes.
most opinions, yeah.
Well, I saw this question and I didn't write out any notes for it. We'll put it that way.
It's the exact same thing.
you
I,
don't you
I
don't
just
you don't
I don't,
need
I
you
don't
don't
need.
I
need too
just
many notes
completely
for it.
No,
Fab. I just completely passed over this question
yeah,
because I
I
figured
forgot.
Mac
I
could just
forgot to
Mac.
copy and paste it in my private notes because that's what we're doing now. As I know, I didn't even. I was like Barry Bond gif. No, because it was stupid. So what do they need to do to get there? If not, so basically, what did they? Honestly, this is gonna sound tough, but I think like Mike Tomlin, I think it's either time to just completely do an overhaul or move on. I don't know. I feel like they need a page one rewrite because you can't continue to, and it's hard to say because they make the playoffs every single year, but you can't be one and done in the playoffs and expect your team to get better and better and better unless there's some sort of a like unless they're killing it on every single one of the draft picks like the Rams are doing. You know what I mean? Like where it doesn't matter where they're drafting, they're killing it on their picks, and you see it because despite the fact that they trade away their first round picks every other year, they still have a team that competes year in and year out, right? So unless that formula all of a sudden happens to Pittsburgh, I mean, how do you expect to get out of this purgatory that is their record every single year of being,
Yeah.
10-7 or 9-8, and okay, we made the playoffs, cool, but like I don't know. Like, yeah, they have skill positions, sure. Like they're always going to have a great defense, regardless of who their defensive players are. They're always going to have a great defense. But on the offensive side of things, I mean, if you're a quarterback right now on the open market, which I know there aren't that many, but still, like if you're a quarterback on the open market right now and you're looking at Pittsburgh and you're like, oh wow, I can't wait to throw to checklist.
Crazy
Calvin
George.
Austin.
Calvin
Crazy,
Austin.
crazy George.
You know, George
Picking
Pickens is
fights
not going to be there
every
anymore.
day.
Like,
but it's absolute malpractice that they did not play Roman Wilson at all this year.
Well, he was hurt. He was hurt.
He was hurt. Yeah, he was hurt early training camp, but he got healthy at some point.
No, he got re-injured.
Re-injured? Oh,
Yeah, he got re-injured, and then he was actually a little bit healthy just right before the playoffs. I think like week 17, but like there's no way Tallman was playing him after he hadn't had any reps all year.
Because everyone has Emeka Puka from Ohio State slated to go there. He's going to be like a mid-first round wide receiver. Yeah. But like, I feel like Tomlin and rookie wide receivers just don't mesh. So why waste another early pick on a wide receiver? I think to Fab's point, like it's Groundhog Day with the Steelers.
Yeah.
Like choose a lane. Choose a lane. Either tank or, and again, tanking in the NFL is hard, but choose a lane where you're going to say, okay, we're going to try to get a top QB in the draft, but stop with these band-aid measures. Like Rooney was saying that they're going to choose between Russell Wilson or Justin Fields.
That's what he said is the most likely outcome that they're gonna choose from.
Sorry, Nac, that's basically telling your locker room we're happy with 9 wins next year, like point blank.
Yeah.
You bring those. So I ask you then, what would you do? Obviously, they're not starting Skylar Thompson. What do you do for the QB position in 2025?
Well, look, at this point, it's Fields, or can you trade? Can you field any offers to see if you can move up to maybe get someone in the first round? A Jackson Dart. I think it's going to cost too much to try to get Shador or Cam Ward.
Yeah, and they don't have that much draft capital.
Pick a QB in the draft, at least in the second round at the very. Take a shot at someone.
So I think personally, in order for them to have any skill position value, it's you sign Fields to a 2-year, $20 million deal, $10 million a year. He becomes your starter, obviously, day one. And then you got to draft. Like, you got to draft a wide receiver somewhere, and there's going to be a QB, those late round QBs that they were talking about, probably late second, early third. They're probably going to have to take a QB to round out the room. And hopefully you nail a Russell Wilson third round, a Dak Prescott third round. Like, you nail some kind of QB like that. Like, there's always one that comes about, right? They tried a few years back with Mason Rudolph. It didn't work. We felt at the time it was a bit too early with Ben still kind of in his prime, but they did take one in the third round that potentially they thought that could be one day the starter of the future.
Solid career. He's still in the league.
If they sign, yeah, and there's rumors of Mason Rudolph signing back with the Steelers, but I'm telling you right now, if they sign Russell Wilson, that's when I agree with you, Raj. You're just telling your locker room you're okay with the standard. The standard is now making the playoffs and first round exit, and you're like okay with that. They cannot give Russell Wilson $35-40 million a year. It would just be insanity.
Well, okay, so a few things. One, what's his name? Jason Dart?
Jackson Dart, dude. Come on.
Like, okay, like I got his first
draft prep in a few weeks, man.
Yeah, don't worry, I'll be fine by then. So like, I think he's going to be there in the first round. No, he probably will. He's probably going to be there in the first round. The Steelers draft in the first round. They're picking like what 15th or 16th or whatever it is.
They're picking 21st.
21st. There it is.
There's no way they pick a QB at 21st. I'll guarantee it right now.
Okay, well, why? Like, is that because of the way that they operate?
Because they did it a couple of years ago and it blew up in their face.
Okay. Like,
but that's
but trust me, they will not. They honestly,
too much time on the Steelers.
Is there really? We'll get into the draft, but there's no really. There's 2 QBs that should go in the first round. There's definitely not more than 2.
Will Howard.
Will Howard is not going first round. Come on. Oh boy.
If McAfee has something to say.
Yeah, McAfee was very upset at that notice today.
He's definitely paying him. He's getting paid for sure.
Yeah.
And Justin Fields, you said 2-year contract, $10 million a year. Do you think Justin Fields is going to take that contract?
That's what
100%.
Darnold. Isn't that what Darnold got?
Yeah. What else is he going to take? He's been a backup. What's he going to take?
Well, that's like borderline backup money to start. 2 years, $10 million.
But he's not guaranteed
Well,
to be a starter.
you were a backup the year before, which Darnold was. Maybe it goes up a little bit this year. It's 11 or 12. He's not getting more than that from anyone. I don't see it. And if
Darnold
you
signed a 1 year.
if you do, I mean, go for it. If someone gives you more than that, then 100%. I would
Darnold signed
definitely
a
go somewhere else.
1 year, $10 million deal.
Yeah,
Darnold with
of course.
Minnesota.
Yes.
It's,
Maybe he wouldn't sign a 2-year deal. Maybe that he wouldn't do. He'd maybe
Yeah.
try to sign another 1-year deal,
Or
knowing
sign a
that
1-year
Pittsburgh is
contract,
trying
yeah.
to find a QB of the future.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
But let's move on. We'll have a lot more draft discussions in the coming weeks. So another guy who just came out of the playoffs and had an incredible 2024 is James Cook. So I ask you, Raj, can he replicate his top 10 finish from 2024? He finished RB8. And where would you draft him in 2025?
100%. He could definitely replicate it. I was so impressed with James Cook, and I was really down on him last year because I felt he wasn't a physical enough running back. And he finished with what I think 16 touchdowns in the regular season, 14 or 16 touchdowns in the regular season. I think it was a franchise record as well.
I think 18 even.
Yeah, maybe
I
with the
think rushing
total.
and receiving was 18.
Yeah. So Joe Brady is back. He declined any other coaching opportunities. So I love what they did with the running game. For me, this was like one of the most fun running games to watch all year, whether it was Cook or Ty Johnson, or obviously Josh Allen. The O-line will stay intact as well. And again, he ran pretty physically. He was at 2.3 yards after contact per attempt, which is higher than Saquon, Mixon, and even Jonathan Taylor. So definitely can 100% replicate. In terms of so when we did our way too early rankings, we had him at 10th. So that was, he was behind Bucky Irving and Kyren Williams. I definitely have him ahead of Kyren. We even had Chase Brown at number 7, and I'd probably even have James Cook ahead of Chase Brown as well. So probably in the 7 to 8 range for me.
That makes sense. Fab?
He's more in my 10 to 12 range.
Wow.
The TD output of 16 is going to be hard to replicate, and he had less carries and less receptions than last year. So I feel like, and now you're seeing more of a crowded backfield with Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, who are just getting involved in the mix. I'm not saying it's going to eat into his usage tremendously, but all of a sudden there are more mouths to feed in that offense. I do like the fact that Joe Brady is coming back. I like the fact that all the same offensive structure will continue to exist. I just wouldn't be surprised if he goes from having 16 touchdowns or 18 total touchdowns down to like 10, which I think is more of a reasonable floor, I would say.
So,
well, it's rare that when people have to score 18 touchdowns, they replicate it a second year in a row. That's like 100%.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
it's very
sure.
hard to replicate that amount of production.
One thing that you can look for as far as at least forecasting production is usage. And his carries and receptions last year to this year, very similar, not that far off. I think he had less carries by like maybe 10 carries, let's say. And he had less receptions by around like maybe 15 than last year. Last year, he had a great year by all accounts. No one expected him to do as well as he did. And there was a bit of a drop off in touchdown production. I think he had like maybe, I don't know, like 5 or something.
2.
And that was a knock on him this year during drafts about like, you know what? In the red zone, it's going to go to Josh Allen. In the red zone, it might not be James Cook. Well,
and it still did.
It still did.
That's what's crazy. It still did, and he still ate, you know?
And yeah, exactly. So I just, that's the only thing I'm weary about. Like, if he's my RB1 next year, like I better have a very solid RB2, right? Because he can produce on he might give you high-end RB2 numbers, which is great, but you know, you obviously want your RB1 to be a monster. And I would feel more comfortable with Chase Brown. I would feel more comfortable with Josh Jacobs, obviously, Bucky Irving, even Devon Achane. I feel like
so I was curious about Achane. That's one where Achane as well, they're gonna want to put in Jalen Wright at some point. I think they picked him in the second round, and
that's why I didn't put in Chuba Hubbard because I feel like they're going to also want to throw in their rookie. As mind you,
He's gone the rest of the year. He's gone all of next year.
It's true.
all of next year.
Tore his
Well, he
ACL
tore
again.
his he tore his ACL in like week
I didn't know he's
16
going to
or
be
week
out all of.
17,
I didn't know
whatever
it's
it was.
confirmed he's all of next year though. I know he's going to be out for
Well,
the
it's a
beginning of the season.
year. It's a year recovery.
Oh man.
Personally, there's one. Sorry, Knack. There's one. I think it's pretty debatable between Brees Hall and James Cook. I wouldn't be shocked where people would rather take James Cook over Hall. I think Hall was really 11.5 fantasy points per game last year. Really disappointing.
Yeah, but you know what? I think Hall is that bounce back candidate to come back after a tough year. There was a lot of stuff surrounding the Jets last year, man.
True.
Like there was a lot of baggage over there. Maybe new coach, new regime, new insight. I think maybe, like to your point, people will be weary of drafting him, but I think people who do draft him are going to be happy that they did and they got him a little later than most people.
I agree with that.
And our final question here for the day. So I know Raj and myself were dead wrong on this one. I think Fab deserves a little pat on the back for standing in his corner. But are we finally going to see the decline from Derrick Henry in 2025? He turned 31 in January and finished as the RB4 behind only Gibbs, Saquon, and Bijan in 2024. Raj, where are you drafting Derrick Henry in 2024? I think our viewers are going to be very excited for this answer.
So I would put him like 6th. I would probably put him just behind Josh Jacobs. So the best age 31 rushing seasons. Curtis Martin, 16,097 yards in 2024.
1,600.
16. Did I say 16,000?
16,000.
It's okay. Henry's going to get 16,000 next year.
I love Curtis Martin. I love Curtis Martin. So Curtis Martin 1,600, basically 1,700 yards, and Tiki Barber basically 1,700 yards in 2006. And then afterwards they fell off the face of the earth and they retired after. So
right.
Similar to the Chiefs, where I will not pick against the Chiefs until I see them falter. I am not gonna pick against Derrick Henry again until I see him be absolute crap. So I'm gonna bet against. I'm gonna bet that he will have another very good season, and hopefully the Ravens in the playoffs actually realize that they have Derrick Henry, because for the second year in a row they realized that they just let go of the run. So.
Well, they realized when they played Pittsburgh that they had him.
Yeah, like
and he ran for 200 yards.
Like against the Bills, like they come second year in a row, Todd Monken just completely forgot the game plan to run the ball. So
yeah, Fab.
Yeah, no, he's not gonna drop off. Will he see a decline? I mean, in theory, just because I don't think he's gonna rush for 1,900 yards and 16 touchdowns. So yeah, to some degree a decline. But similar to Raj, I mean, you're gonna have to convince me pretty strongly not to take him in the top 10, top 8 for sure. He's a freak of nature, man. It doesn't matter how old he gets. Like until he stops playing, that's when you don't draft him. In my opinion, Derrick Henry is there. He's on the board. You draft him. He's at worst, you're gonna get like he did with Tennessee his last year in Tennessee. I'm looking at the stats now: 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns. Like that's like a baseline for him, And in the beginning of the season, I was like, yeah, he can rush for 20 touchdowns. Everyone thought I was crazy. It wasn't far off. So yeah, the 18 total touchdowns. He had 2 receiving touchdowns too.
He has a Tom Brady feel to it. Remember, like everyone, he got to 40, he got to 41, and everyone's like, "This is the year. This is the year."
Brady's done. He's done.
Me saying these things, but yeah, I don't know. I tend to agree. I was on that bandwagon of that 30-year-old and seeing a decline, and it just did not happen. Almost rushed for 2,000 yards. Almost did get to 20 total touchdowns, which is just insane. Actually caught his first receiving touchdown in a few years this year as well. So yeah, I think that 6-7 spot is pretty normal. I think that's where I would be drafting him. I think that's where I'd be drafting him as well. I like Raj, I think I got to see it to believe it. The premature duns have to be put on the shelf for Derrick Henry. Well, that about wraps it up for this week's episode. Please, please, please don't forget to subscribe to our podcasts on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube. Follow us on social media, Twitter or X, Instagram, TikTok. It's back. And all any social media platform we post great content weekly, so don't be sure to miss that. And be sure to reach us next week when we go through our Super Bowl predictions. So we're gonna come in hot and heavy with those, and I think it's probably gonna be a little bit lopsided, but
I can't wait.
stay tuned for that. Thanks everyone. Cue the music.
I love the Super Bowl prop bets. Just get some
It's my favorite. It's like my
funky
favorite
stuff,
time of the
man.
year.
I only have $66 so for the Super Bowl, so I gotta
66.
put some
I got like 25. I haven't.
Bob, your problem is your same game parlays are just like do like Saquon Barkley 2 TDs. Just put $50.
Yeah, I know. I'm too.
Yeah.
I
Do
go
like-
way too elaborate. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
put
like
10
I like the
bets.
11 leg parlay because one day it's gonna hit.
11 legs. I always deposit like $100, I think, in Super Bowl time, just because I get too excited.
Yeah, I'm gonna make small bets. We're gonna have some fun.
Bye, guys.
Peace out, everyone.
Bye.